In the day's other news, President Trump rolled out his Middle East peace proposal. It envisions a Palestinian state with parts of East Jerusalem as the capital. It also recognizes Israeli sovereignty over major West Bank settlements. Palestinians condemned the plan, but the president called it a win-win for both sides. We'll take a closer look after the news summary. U.S. health officials ramped up efforts today to contain the spread of a deadly virus from China. 20 U.S. airports and other sites will now monitor for sick travelers. That's an increase of 15. So far, there are only 5 confirmed cases in the U.S., and Alex Azar, the U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services, is counseling calm.
The risk to any individual American is extremely low. We are taking the steps to be prepared for this. We are taking aggressive action, but the individual American, this should not be an impact on their day-to-day life.
Meanwhile, in China, the U.S. State Department began flying American diplomats and others out of Wuhan, which is the epicenter of the outbreak. That came as Chinese officials reported more than 100 deaths out of 4,500 confirmed cases. In Afghanistan, the U.S. military today recovered the remains of both crew members who were killed in a plane crash on Monday. Their surveillance plane went down in Ghazni province, which is largely controlled by the Taliban. Officials say there are no signs the plane was shot down. A powerful earthquake and at least one heavy aftershock hit today in the Caribbean Sea between Cuba and Jamaica. The initial quake had a magnitude of 7.7 and was felt from South Florida to the Cayman Islands. There were no immediate reports of casualties or of heavy damage. The British government will let Chinese telecom giant Huawei build parts of its next-generation mobile networks known as 5G. The U.S. had warned against the move, arguing that Huawei would share intelligence with the Chinese government. But in the House of Commons, Britain's Foreign Minister Dominic Raab said the company's role will be limited to lower-risk parts of the 5G networks.
High-risk vendors should be, first of all, excluded from all safety-related and safety-critical networks in critical national infrastructure. Secondly, excluded from security-critical network functions. And thirdly, limited to a minority presence in other network functions up to a cap of 35%.
We'll hear more about the British decision later in the program. Back in this country, the head of Harvard University's chemistry department has been charged with lying about working for a Chinese recruitment program. Federal officials said that Charles Lieber concealed payments he received from Beijing. It was part of a Chinese program that recruits people with knowledge about U.S. technology and intellectual property. The U.S. budget deficit is expected to reach $1 trillion this year for the first time since 2012. The Congressional Budget Office reported today that Trump administration tax cuts and new federal spending are fueling the red ink despite a healthy economy. The last trillion-dollar deficits came during the recovery from the 2008 Great Recession. And on Wall Street, tech stocks led a rally that recovered some of Monday's losses. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 187 points to close at 28,722. The Nasdaq rose 130 points, and the S&P 500 added 32. Still to come on the NewsHour, President Trump unveils his plan for Middle East peace. What is in it and what will work? Espionage and the future of wireless technology, Chinese company Huawei versus the rest of the world, plus much more.
This is the PBS NewsHour from WETA Studios in Washington and in the West from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State University.